Alright, what is up, everybody? Arashamini here, founder, CEO of Vigilant. And let's see if I can finagle this thing. Um, Pretty exciting times, I gotta say. So, big news, alright, everybody? First off, let me just say we're brought to you by Vigilant.com, the only account based marketing automation tool in the entire universe. So we don't mean you get a software that you have to then spend inordinate amounts of time running because it's not actual automation. We mean a true automation tool, something that literally automates account based marketing. Um, if you want to learn more, if you want to go enter our B2B marketing school, go to vigilant.com/training. Free B2B marketing training for everybody and anybody. vidulant.com. Our goal is to provide access to world-class B2B marketing services for any B2B firm, any size B2B firm. Whether you do it yourself, you use us, or some combination thereof. We're opening up a whole new set of opportunities for mid-market B2B firms to access buyers, not just in this, uh, you know, what would the term be? Ethereal idea of gaining more exposure, but actually connecting, increasing the volume and quality of sales interactions for those B2B buyers that are actually interested in purchasing or learning about your product set, your solution set in your current sales cycle. So, very exciting news, bringing on two partners. So it's going to be a family of three. And these guys are straight up badasses. So excited to be working with them. One is going to be heading our development of products, and one is going to be heading up sales and customer engagement. So you're going to get the world's best software and the world's best customer service. We're going to provide both because we actually give a shit about your success. We're not here to force a sale down your throat with pretty smiles that disappear as soon as you sign the contract, or are only reserved for the most high paying customers. We are going to delight every single one of you. So look out for some exciting stuff. Launching our new product, our first app, I should say. It's kind of a lead generation tool. I think betas, well, let's just say quarter 2 of next year. Quarter 2 of this year, and working with a handful of select few companies through the end of the year, and then rolling out our services in a more self-serve fashion through quarter 1 next year, and then a more open launch of quarter 2 next year. So lots of exciting stuff to go about. One of the things I've been thinking a lot about in the B2B world, we don't talk a lot about culture. The B2C companies get all the buzz and all the press, and they get all the excitement and all the fanfare. You don't see B2B companies treating their workplace like a Google does, or um, an Amazon does, or you know, working at companies like Tinder do. But your staff's happiness level really affects your sales cycle, it affects the quality of your product, it affects um, the productivity of the development staff, it affects everybody. And I don't think it takes much in the B2B space, especially, to provide a little bit of extra attention to people's mood, or better yet, creating an environment in which positive moods prevail or are sustainable. Because that seems to me to be the future. I mean, to say, Currently, most people hate their jobs. I think 85% of people don't like the working at, and like 15 are neutral, and like 1% or some low percent. I shouldn't get into the other terms, other percentages, but are very few people. I think 5% are happy with their jobs. A small handful of people don't hate their jobs. A larger handful of people don't hate their jobs, and the vast majority of the world hates their jobs. And I think, what kind of competitive advantage could you bring to the market if you had employees that, God forbid, enjoyed working for you? And what does that mean? I think it means seeing the whole person, seeing them as someone that you're leading, not someone that you're managing, and understanding that in any other circumstance, another lifetime, let's say, another job, another market cycle, you could have your places switched. And so, having empathy for people, developing empathy, that EQ, that emotional quotient, is really important. And from a strict business standpoint, it's going to increase your return on investment. People put out better work. Oh my God. Why did the lights go off? New office, new quirks. Don't block the light switch. It has a motion detector on it. It, there's a phrase out there on the internet: facts don't care about your feelings. Well, the opposite is also true, oddly enough. My feelings don't care about your facts. If you make me feel bad, then I'm not going to take into account whatever figures you're promoting. And in fact, every salesperson knows the opposite is true. You don't sell with facts. People don't sit around and listen to facts until they're emotionally engaged. And, in the B2B world, it's not as sexy, but, addressing people's pain points with solutions and providing that feeling of relief is a way to get your facts across and differentiate yourself from your competition, right? But going into a sales meeting and spewing, first and foremost, immediately, numbers and statistics and percentages is a surefire way to have the people you're pitching tune you out, have their eyes glaze over. Now, you could present one fact or figure, but it has to be contextualized in a story that grabs people's attention. And stories are a really good way of connecting facts with emotions. And I'm not saying I'm masterful at doing this, but I do know what doesn't work because I failed more than most people have tried. I mean, that's just a fact. When you can connect with someone on an emotional basis, they're going to listen to your facts, and those facts are going to be far more deeply affect them, much more deeply penetrating. They will actually spend the precious calories and effort to look at your solution critically. There's a book I'm reading by Olin Kloff, Pitch Anything. And, yeah, Kloff, Klaff, called Pitch Anything. And he talks about how, as salespeople, we go in and we want to explain the solution the way we've come to see it. But the way people absorb information is actually the opposite of the way that we want to explain it. And often we lead with deep nuances and end with an emotional why. And it doesn't work. The close rate is very low amongst people that have to do this and brute force sales. On the flip side, we all have these hindbrains that have a coarse view of the world, but and he argues this effectively from my perspective, we have this coarse view of the world that's a low energy view, or requires low energy from the brain to maintain. But If anything becomes dangerous, it gets passed to like the midbrain, and the midbrain will do some mild processing, and then pass it to the front brain, of which will do very granular analysis. But the granular analysis takes a lot of calories, literally energy, and attention, and focus. And you simply can't do it for every little thing that comes your way. In fact, the brain is constantly ignoring stimuli, or at least your conscious brain is ignoring stimuli from the rest of your brain, from your environment, because there's just too much going on in any circumstance, um, in any situation, in any environment, even a single room. You cannot process everything at once. You'll be overburdened with stimuli and thus data, and will not be able to pick and choose what's important. So how do you pick and choose what's most important? The hindbrain has a very well evolved mechanism for doing this, and it's based on like fight or flight. Do I need to avoid something, or do I need to go to something? What do I need to avoid? What do I need to move towards? And we avoid things that are dangerous, and we move towards things that are potentially beneficial. And your pitch has to, as a salesperson, he argues, be avoid the place of danger and even neutrality, because that'll be that's not going to help me, dump it in, ignore it, right? Avoid, ignore, focus on. And we avoid things that we deem dangerous, that we deem not unprofitable, but unbeneficial or unhelpful. And we look at and focus on things that we deem are helpful, beneficial, and would help. Let's leave it at those two, right? And in the business world, this translates to things that make us money or reduce our pain. And if we can't get that across quickly as B2B leaders, we will have a tough time getting to the more interesting nuances and differentiators that make us so special. And so crafting that story around our brands is really, really important. And I'm not saying I have the best story in the world, nor am I saying I invented any of this. I'm talking to you as someone who has come to this understanding that others have been talking about for years and years and years, after many, many failures, of why can't I get across my message effectively? I know how special my product is. I know how powerful its solution is. I know how desperately it would people need something like this, but something like this has never existed before. So how do I get them to understand? How do I get my foot in the door? How do I start the conversation, let alone have the conversation? And it's really hard to open doors with a new idea, because people will put you in a box really fast, and they will put you in one of three boxes: ignore, avoid, or focus. And that focus box is really valuable, because not even their own breath gets their focus. Things have to be really clearly, the potential has to be very obvious for someone to get, the beneficial potential has to be really obvious for someone to spend this really limited bandwidth focusing on. And that's why investors will often pass on great opportunities, because they can't get it. They can't get the concept. But you tell someone with a Airbnb of doggy travel, and if that's a big problem, then a lot of investors will, lean in, so to speak. And so as B2B leaders, whatever department you're leading, or organization, whatever size, if you're launching something new, whether you're a large organization with a new product launch, or your new organization and you're all focused on this new product launch, your whole organization is a new product launch, right? Getting the story right is really important, because not only does it get the attention of your prospects so that they listen to your actual pitch, whatever that might be, a blog post, a phone call, whatever piece of marketing collateral or sales collateral you have, or your staff. Why are they here? Why are they working? Yes, we're all cashing paychecks, but what else is going on? A lot of you might have heard my musings on the new economy and how I believe we're all shifting towards an economy, a global economy that's, for the first time ever, will be more focused than not towards achieving self actualization. And I think this is a really big inflection point for humanity. And for me, you know, when I took a step back and I looked at what I'm doing here, I realized, hey man, I'm really passionate about solving global problems. There's a lot of them, right? There's a lot of them out there. And pick your institution, it's riddled with problems. Um, and most of it comes from the fact that we were cave people a few generations ago. No internet, no electricity, no IT, no telecom, nothing, right? No satellites. We just had no data. We had no information. We were living in that, was it Socratean or Plato's cave, whomever the philosopher was. And now we're inundated with data out of nowhere. We're just we can't process it all. So we need stories to frame the data so we can see the important data points clearly while ignoring the others. And it doesn't need to be perfect, but it needs to be obviously superior to our old perspective. And that's the opportunity we get to capitalize on as B2B business leaders. We have this opportunity to change the world at scale because the consumer economy is only like a third of the economy. Although there's a lot more firms competing in it, in the B2B world, the e-commerce space, B2B e-commerce is 2.5 times the size of B2C e-commerce. Most businesses, or most by dollar amount, well, it's probably 50-50 roughly globally. Anyway, it's not that well understood because it's not sexy, because the nightly news, because the average consumer doesn't give a shit about what equipment manufacturer was used to make their hamburger. It's just there's too many of those things that they have to ignore. And I believe if you have a B2B solution, you can actually get it out to everyone else that needs it at scale, much faster and easier than if it was a consumer solution. What do I mean by that? I mean, there's a guy I'm going to bring on the podcast soon who has a new fuel production technology. And he's trying to sell it to consumers. And I'm like, dude, what are you doing? No, 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 no. This is a B2B play. You need to be selling this to companies that are spending a ton of money on fuel, either legit for travel, transportation, refinement, whatever it is. And this is a way to, increase security, offset costs, um, decrease downtime. It's a much more pressing concern than a consumer that might want to have a cleaner or slightly cheaper form of fuel, but with these other technical limitations. And so he could get that out to, you know, every hospital enough hospitals in the world, in the US, in North America, whatever his market is, to make a difference, which will cascade down. And eventually, a consumer model can be manufactured, but a consumer model is going to cost you 10 times more to get to market because it needs to look good and it needs to have better interface and it needs to have a mobile app. And consumers are spoiled. Let's be real. They have too many choices. Everyone wants their attention and they're simply they're spoiled. But B2B business firms need it to work. They need to save them money. They need the basic value proposition to be clear and honest and real, and they will put up with terrible user interface and expensive costs and all sorts of stuff because there's a business need that's being solved. It's not a what would you call it? It's not some sort of vain. It's not a vanity that's being provided. This app will get you a mate. This phone will make you look sexier. This product will make you look younger. This food will make you feel better. It's dollars and cents. It's going to save you this much time. It's going to save you this much money. It's going to make you this much money. It pretty much comes down to how much money is it going to save you and how much money or money is it going to make you, right? And however much difference the delta is, Hopefully, it's saving them a ton of money and making them money, or making them a ton of money, right? And typically, the people want to make more. You can only save so much money at the end of the day. You want to make more money because there's an infinite upside on money, on generating more revenue, new revenue. I can grow my company infinitely more than I can cut costs, right? Because at a certain point, I'm going to hit a, what is it going to go to zero? Even let's say I have a theoretically impossible limit of zero costs for my company. That's a limit. But revenue is theoretically infinite. So, you know, the difference isn't exactly um, possible, but it is real. Let's see. Okay, so I have 10 more minutes here. So, the story we're living here, and it's not just something you tell people, because a fake story can be sussed out within one meeting, definitely over the course of a B2B sales cycle, or however many sales encounters you need to make the sale in the B2B world. You have to live your story. That's what people mean when they say your values have to align with your mission. You have to actually mean what you're saying. And so for me here, I am literally trying to, because I've seen it so many times. First off, I've been in the B2B world where I've had a new market and a new product. I spent 6 years in indoor farming. And most of that time was spent at the commercial scale. Over 4 of those years, at least 4 of those years, I should say, was spent trying to commercialize industrial scale indoor farming under artificial lights and of fucking vegetables. Like the worst business you could ever be in. I mean, and I have stories I could talk about for years. But I had this vision, this solution. It was horribly underfunded and extremely capital intense. Extremely capital intense. Um, it's like ridiculous now that I think back on it. Thank God I had the naivety to and the audacity to try something impossible. Um, Literally impossible. Like 95% impossible. I didn't get to the 5%. Let's just move on. Highly improbable. Um, and it's going to be a way for grocery stores to grow their own food at scale, on demand, at cost, like way superior quality food with zero transportation time. It was going to change the world, and it was going to provide food security, which was my main concern. And it failed every way it could possibly fail. It's a very, very complicated undertaking. To build a server farm would have been easier. There would have been a fixed cost and a clear return, and margins were obvious, and I could have gotten it financed. It's something people already wanted. Like that would have been much easier than an actual indoor farm with all sorts of unknowns at the time, and it still remain. So trust me when I say this. Um, Commercializing something new in the B2B world is really challenging. You have to get your story right. You have to have a story. If your pitch doesn't start with a story, a 10-second, 30-second story, then you're running uphill. You are running counterproductively into every evolutionary safeguard that the human brain has developed over the past 100,000 years at least, right? So you're actively fighting the evolution, that great and all-powerful evolutionary force that has pushed us across the Great Plains and of the great savannas and prairies and gotten us to this position. You are not going to win that fight, but if you work with that evolutionary force through the magic, the mechanism of stories, you will have the wind at your back. And you have to understand, before there was language, before there was written history, before there was much of anything, we had stories. And our brains have evolved to learn through storytelling. Because for so many years, we would sit around a campfire, we would sit around and listen to stories, and information was passed on orally. And so our brains have been hardwired to do that. And to the point where we can look at each other's eyes and detect minute shifts in the geometry of the eye, such that we know if someone's staring at us or directly next to us, past us, just past our ears. Because knowing where someone looks is really important, and that 1 millimeter of difference of where the eye is facing is detectable by our brains and our eyeballs. And that's why when we look at movies, looking at where the person is looking that we're watching is really important in storytelling. And look at the movie industry and the rise, of podcasting and all sorts of entertainment is because we value stories as a human species. It's inseparable from our biology. It is now part of our biology. So if you don't have a story for business, you're fucked. The good news is, it doesn't take much to come up with a story. Who are you helping? Who's the hero of your story? What is the hero's journey that you are assisting in? Your client, your industry, right? Your partners, your employees. Pick the hero and imagine the journey through their life, the arc, the adversity, the triumph, and the resolution. A basic story is we are helping business-to-business marketing leaders launch new products 30 to 40 times better than before. We're letting them save millions of dollars, many months of spin-up, and their precious ad dollars to provide a guaranteed result. That's compelling, right? And that's been crafted, and that's been validated and tested. Find the pillars of your story and start sharing it with people. And sometimes it helps to get someone to tell you what's my story here, because you've been staring at the words and the letters so closely that you lost sight of the paragraphs and the chapters. And that's perfectly common. We all go through that. But as leaders, we have to have the map that guides our people through this forest, and that requires having a distant perspective of what we're doing, a larger perspective. And then, the best of us can dive in and lead on the ground too, and be able to, read the map, make the map, and then guide people through the terrain with that map and edit it on the fly. So, God bless you if you have more than 3 employees. That's our full-time staff right now, a bunch of vendors and contractors, but it gets harder, I'm sure. So let my naive, limited, almost idealistic test case be something from which you can draw out future and extrapolate learnings from, right? We're the test lab. We want to give you the results. So with that, check us out, Vidulent.com. We hope to work with you soon.